At last, we return to Porterverse Workbench once again. This model is a bit more unique compared to my other ones, as it is one of the few models that is a diesel engine. This model is also a character very few have made in realistic or railway series form. This is my model of Salty the Dockside Diesel. Salty is a character I believe can fit into the railway series seamlessly, which is a very cool take for me to make in this fandom at this point. From the basis, to the timing, to the characterization, Salty is just a really good character, I find. Before we get into how I made this character in physical model form, let's dive into Salty's Porterverse backstory. Disclaimer, this is headcanon, so it is going to be different from the official TV series, so just keep that in mind, I guess. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Salty is in fact the real-life 2991, built in 1962. He worked at Southampton Docks for most of his service life, but without an official name. Most people would just call him by his service number, 2991. 2991 was working at Southampton well into the early 70s. By 1973, the shunter at Nafford Harbour, known as Porter, was going in for an overhaul. By pure happenstance, 2991 was withdrawn around the same time, and went up for sale. The Nafford Harbour Board, seeing a strong diesel shunter still in good condition, immediately jumped at the opportunity well before anyone else could to buy him, and officially purchased 2991 to fill in for Porter. 2991 was run up to Nafford Harbour under his own power, and upon arrival he was painted into a red livery before being christened with the name of his choosing, Salty. Salty took over Porter's work, but had no idea that there was an engine before him. It just never crossed his mind. For the next 3 years, Salty worked alone. That was until 1976. Porter's grand return from overhaul caused quite a bit of a stir for Salty. Salty feared being replaced, as he himself had to go into maintenance at the same time Porter returning. In other words, the events of the episode Away from the Sea unfolded around this time. And in the end, Salty and Porter became good friends. Both would share their stories to each other as they worked, and will become brothers over time. Salty is very good friends with Porter, and still works in Nafford Harbour to this very day. Salty's model was pretty simple to make, if I'm being honest. He is quite literally just a Helgen 07 painted red. I purchased the variant with the white roof from Rails Sheffield, and I intended to keep it white. There are some extra box things on the side. I removed those shortly after I got it. Following that little modification, I primed the body in my usual acrylic gray, making sure to avoid the wash striping on the front and back, as I wanted to keep that for this model. Following the primer, I applied many coats of red. The color I used was Model Color Carmine Red by Vallejo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I believe this kind of paint was made for airbrushing, as it was a bit difficult to work with brushing on. Normally my models with like apple barrel paint, for example, take around 3, maybe 4 coats at most. Salty took 5 coats to get even. And I had to be careful, as it would often come up with the brush if I handled it wrong or just held it in my hand wrong. It would rub off pretty easily. It also caked up pretty easily, and I had to sand down some of the cab parts so that the removable cab would slide in without rubbing off the paint. Following that was some yellow detailing. I kept the side rods yellow and then painted the sides of the running board yellow to match. I then also did some cleanup work in black. I also painted the front grills black too. The weathering is a component of Salty that is just inseparable from the character. He needs to be all grimy and messy. Normally, I don't weather my models much, if at all, but Salty will be the exception. So I took some black paint and watered it down heavily before going to town. I was going for a generally dirty model more so than solely oil stains. However, I did emphasize the weathering where oil would logically be, like dripping from vents and such. Considering this was my first time weathering with this method, I'd say it turned out pretty easy and nice. And just like that, Salty was done. Pretty simple model that can turn out beautifully in the end. I love this thing. Porter and Salty are finally united in model form. I do have some more updates to share with you all at last. Porterverse lore, I believe Season 3 will end with Episode 21 in November. and Season 4 will begin with Episode 22 in 2025. Should things all go to plan, there will only be one more marathon going up this year on Thanksgiving, as usually that time of year is pretty chaotic for my household. Railways of the Porterverse will indeed return in November. It won't be the big city railways, sadly, but I will be focusing on the narrow gauge railways, so it'll be the Scarlet Railway and the Mid-Little Railway in one big video. Very exciting. Porterverse OCs will also return in November with a new character. I've mentioned her once before, but I'll say the details for her specific video. I'm also working on some more specialty videos like the magazine, character video, and also more ranking videos too. I had a lot of fun with last year's season ranking video, so I figured I'm about to do more similar rankings. It has been done a lot in this community, so I will try to mix it up with my next ranking video. And those will be coming out over the course of the coming months, so stay tuned for those as they come out. In regards to this series, Porterverse Workbench, there will be 2 more episodes this year. One will come out at some point in November, and the other in December. I'm also working on this year's Halloween specials too. There will be a regular Halloween special coming up on the Sunday before Halloween, and then a marathon on Halloween itself, which is a Thursday. And that's actually all the others I have for now, so let's just get into the outro. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of Porterverse Workbench, and I shall see you all same time next week.